The following is a HoopBall presentation.
All right, welcome to the HoopBall Celtics podcast. My name is Patrick. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Ballin Opinions. That's BALLINOPINIONS. I'm here with Hunter today of the HoopBall Nets. How's it going, Hunter?
I'm doing well, just had some breakfast, excited, ready to talk Celtics. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Hunter_JKR, and you can listen to me and my co-host pod at HoopBall Nets.
Yeah, man. So this is actually our second go at this. We had some technical difficulties on Skype, so we switched over to the Locker Room app to help us out today, talking about some of the acquisitions that the Celtics got and also about yesterday's game. What you think about Robert Williams finally getting that start going? I know we talked about it already, but what made you really excited?
So I've been pushing for this for a while. Like, whenever he'd have his spurt minutes, you could easily tell that he was the best of the three. And yes, there was some fine tuning to do on the defensive end. He's mainly just a shot blocker instead of like an overall great defensive player right now. But I think the more minutes he gets, the better he'll be. So giving him that starting role, rolling with the best guys, is something I've wanted to see for a while. I was really happy, especially because we pulled out a win against the top team while he was doing it. So even when he wasn't scoring, he was impacting the game in a number of different ways. And the second half of the season should be exciting.
Yeah, his rim ability and attacking the rim and being that lob threat really opens up the thing for the other four on the floor with him. He's just been great also on the defensive side. I think he's been our best player on defense as far as the centers go. And I really enjoyed his rim protecting lately. I mean, last night he had 5 blocks against the Bucks and just stayed really solid. He also contributed, I think it was like 2 or 3 steals in the game. So very active guy. He also had second most assists, 6 assists for Robert Williams out of the center position. What's the craziest part about that stat is that this is his first start of the season. He got 6 assists. Tristan Thompson's season high right now in assists is 3 in a game. So the ability of him just being able to really open up the offense, not only in the regards of passing, but also changing the game of really deflecting shots and poking the ball away from defenders and getting us back in transition has been really nice. What'd you think about Marcus Smart, hitting 7 of 10 from downtown?
See, I've always been a fan of Smart. And the thing with him is he's so hot and cold, and that's why so many people are like, oh, trade him. And then the very next day it's, oh, you can never trade him. This guy's amazing. He impacts the game in a whole different way that the box score never shows. And that's why I don't think it matters whether he's playing in the starting lineup or off the bench. He's going to show up when it matters, and he's going to make an impact. He always makes the clutch plays. Even if he doesn't hit the game winner per se, he will get the game winning steal or block or loose ball, and he will hit those threes that help us get back in a game. I think trading Smart would have been the biggest mistake of the season had Ainge decided to pull that.
Yeah, it was funny hearing Danny Ainge talk about Marcus Smart trade and say that like he went to Marcus Smart, and even Marcus Smart said this, that Danny told him he wasn't getting traded. So I don't know where the rumors came out. Maybe his name was dangled around a little bit, and Danny just didn't like what other teams valued him at, because I think his value is definitely highest with the Celtics, because the Celtics have had this player for so long that they've understand the things that don't come up on a stat sheet that he is able to affect really well. So I think Boston did the right move. And also, I just don't think that this was the season to go, all right, we got to really flip everything upside down and try to change a bunch of things and make a bunch of mistakes when, I don't think there's a move out there that necessarily puts us in finals, contention or favorites by any means. So I think this year it's more of about, let's get Robert Williams more minutes on the floor. let's grow. Let's let Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown really grow into that leadership role, as this is the first year that they're really taking over that, and just see how far they can go this season. And in the off season, we'll address some of the things and really build a core around those guys.
Yeah, I think the only other move we can really make is getting Drummond, and getting Drummond takes all of Robert Williams' minutes right back to the bench. So I'm not sure that I'm in love with that move. I mean, I think Drummond can help us in terms of rebounding and being a big body versus the other centers in the East. But I really do want to see Robert Williams grow, and him starting is what creates that path. I don't know how you feel about Drummond.
Yeah, I'm honestly not the biggest Drummond fan. I've been caught saying that a lot. People bash me because of how harsh I am on Drummond. He's an average defender at the most. I think Robert Williams is a better defender than him. I think Robert Williams is a better basketball player than him. The only thing that looks nice for Drummond is that he can go out there and get you 20 rebounds in a night, and that's something that is utilized and is a good thing for a team. The only thing is just at the same time for me, I'm just thinking like, does Drummond make me feel like we're title contenders? And I don't necessarily think that does make me feel like we're title contenders. I do think it makes us more interesting, and it could possibly shock some people that ends up working out. But at the same time, I'm more for on the wagon of what, our two stars are both in their 20s, 24 or under, and you got Robert Williams, finally starting to grow into this new role. It's like, why not just let this season be a development process? You don't have to speed it along. I understand that Celtics fans are, definitely right now a little spoiled in the sense that, like, hey, man, we've gone to 3 Eastern Conference Finals in the last 4 years. We want to go back, or we want to take the next step. Man, we got lucky, that we got that experience for our young guys in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Let's just continue to progressively make them grow and figure out what are the pieces in the offseason to really put around them to complement them. And then we could take that next step. So I think the next like 2 years are really like, what can we put around these guys to really make a strong run? And then that way our title window is actually 4 to 5 years, and we're not just trying to put our chips in for a 1 to 2 year stint.
Yeah, I agree, especially because if we're being honest, no one is taking down the fully healthy Nets for the next 2 years while they're having that roster. They have 2 top 7 players, probably, depending on where people have Harden. Some have him at 8 or 9. For me, he's about 6 or 7. And then they have Kyrie, who's top 15. And with that team, people are going to come to play around them. It's going to be minimum guys. They're going to want to play, want to get that ring. So the Nets will have 2 to 3 years to get their rings. After that, it's anyone's game because the Lakers will be done and the Clippers will likely be broken up. It's going to be a whole different powerhouse after that. And being that Tatum and Brown are both 24 and under, like you said, if we keep them, they'll hit their prime right when that window opens back up. So I think this is all learning. This is all learning and helping Kemba stay competitive for the entirety of his contract. But going forward, it's a learning process for the young guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing is like, I don't think that they should be totally unaggressive in 2 years, because I mean, we talk about how like the Nets reign is going to be done in about 2 or 3 years, we think, but everybody was waiting on the Warriors reign to stop. And it's like, and then you got the Nets now creating this super team. So I'm not necessarily saying like, keep waiting and keep waiting, keep waiting. I just think for our timeline in general, for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it's push the chips in when they're 26, 27. And that's when we get really aggressive and make sure that we try to build the best championship team around them. And we take a 4 or 5 year run and we really try to just hammer in and try to get a ring or two in that situation. And it's really tough to do that in the NBA to just get those championships going. But into other news, Evan Fournier coming to the Boston Celtics. How do you feel about that?
So I honestly thought we were getting Aaron Gordon, but Marcus Smart was apparently the centerpiece that the Magic wanted in Gordon talks. It was Smart from us and Harris from the Nuggets. So I don't blame Ainge at all because I don't want to move Smart. I don't think Gordon is worth moving Smart. I think Smart's impact on the court is bigger than Gordon's, in fact. But you can't turn down 2 second-round picks for Fournier, whether he's a rental or not, because we've had all these picks and done nothing with them before, and second rounders don't really wind up being much in the long run. So Fournier, if we can turn him into a few year extension type of player, which is what I'm hearing Ainge wants, Stevens wants, and Fournier is not opposed to it, then I'm not against it either because Fournier is a high volume scorer, fairly efficient, shooting 46% from the field, 39 from three, solid free throw shooter, and he's a shot creator. He averages about 4 assists. He can make plays when one of the Jays has to sit. So I'm excited about it. Also, shout out to Mo Wagner. Um, I had him when he was on Michigan that year. I had them making the championship and winning it. They obviously lost to Villanova, but I became in love with him and the rest of that Michigan roster when they almost won me my bracket. They came so close, but now he's a Celtic, so reunite.
Oh yeah, that must be quite the feeling having Mo Wagner. Yeah, Evan Fournier, I think he's definitely going to add a dynamic approach to the Celtics. It's going to add another Army Swiss knife into this Brad Stevens type rotation and lineup. So it'll be interesting to see if he decides to start him, if he decides to have him come off the bench. I personally still think he should start him. I think he'd be really good in the starting lineup, and Marcus Smart would be good in the playmaking ability on the bench. But it wouldn't shock me if, Brad Stevens was like, I want scoring off the bench and had Fournier come off for, when first Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown came off, or even when Marcus Smart took a break or something like that. The good thing is that I feel like we have four good scorers now on the team, so we get to stagger at least two at a time. And I think that's just going to be a really consistency for our offense, which has lacked at times when we have to throw in that bench unit and we throw in Jason Tatum by himself or Jaylen Brown by himself or even Kemba Walker. And you go, we need you to carry the offensive load because the people around them aren't able to create for themselves. So they're out there trying to create for their teammates and themselves at the same time. So I think that's just going to be a very interesting aspect to the Celtics offense moving forward, adding Fournier to the mix. But I'm really excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I want to see him off the bench just to start to see how he'll work with the other stars whenever he does come into the game. I think it is. We've seen this before when the Celtics have a lot of ball handlers that there's some unrest. I'm hoping that that doesn't occur this time around. It seems like Fournier is more lighthearted and in it to win it than just over here trying to steal shots from everyone. So I think if everyone just buys in and regardless of their role, that Stevens can roll with the hot hand to close out games, that the second half of the season is looking up and we can climb right back up to that fourth seed because that's going to be right where we want to sit, fourth or fifth seed, so we don't have to run directly right into one of the Bucks, Sixers, Nets right away. I mean, I always think we match up fairly well with the Sixers regardless, but I think preserving that for a second round matchup might be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ability of the Celtics is, we can get to that fourth seed 100%. And it all depends on really how the Miami Heat continue to play throughout the season because there is still a possibility that the Celtics can creep their way into that third spot as well. Or I think actually Miami went to eighth seed, so I'm actually tripping. So yeah, I don't think they're gonna be able to get to that third seed. Milwaukee's at third, Brooklyn's at two, and Philly's at one right now. Yeah, they definitely want to avoid Brooklyn, I think, first round. That'd be a tough matchup, and I feel bad for anybody who has to play the Heat in that first round because I think the Heat are going to cause a lot of issues as far as the standings go themselves. It would be interesting to see uh, who we end up matching it with in the playoffs. I do want to just see Boston 10th, and wondering if what you think they're going to be finishing at overall.
I mean, record wise, I could see us finishing at maybe. See, this is tough because I'm expecting a hot run at some point from us. So maybe a like a 39 and 33 kind of finish, which I hope is good enough for the fourth seed. But if anyone else stays hot, like if the Heat get hot as well, we're going to wind up matching up with them in the first round. But I'm hoping that we finish as the four seed and we end up with a matchup like the Hawks, who are now hot, or the I don't. There's a whole bunch of teams in the mix. I don't think the Knicks are going to stay up there. I don't think the Hornets are going to stay up there. It's going to wind up causing some separation soon, but I do think the Celtics will be around 39 and 33 and have a steady seven-man like heavy minutes rotation, and then have Pritchard and Grant Williams probably as their eighth and ninth contributing as well.
Was wondering if what you thought of Jaylen Brown's knee going into the postseason, how comfortable you feel about that, and also Kemba Walker.
I think Jaylen Brown will be okay. I never have concerns about him. In a way, he's similar to Klay Thompson to me, not in terms of how he plays at all or anything, but stability. Like I can always rely on Jaylen Brown to be there, and I see him as next to Smart as one of like the rocks of the team, and I think he will, regardless of injury, he'll be playing his best game. Kemba's the one I'm more concerned about because he still hasn't hit peak form yet, and I don't know if we'll see that. I hope we do, but it's going to be interesting to see if the second half gets Kemba back to Kemba for the playoffs rather than what he was in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kemba Walker's. I think they're being really careful with him. I think he's able to medically play back to backs, but I think the Celtics are being really cautious and going, you know what, we're not going to play back to backs on Kemba Walker during the regular season. The only time he's going to play, within stints like that would be next season. As far as back to backs, you don't really play any back to backs in the playoffs, so you don't have to worry about that either. I am a little bit more concerned than you as far as Jaylen Brown's knee because he's came out and said he hasn't felt 100% and he's not able to have the same explosion that he's used to having because of his knee issue. And the fact that he's continuing to play through it and because of the Celtics standing wise aren't able to rest him as much as they should be right now has me a bit concerned as into the fact of like, and he's a 24-year-old and he's having knee tendonitis and it's bothering him right now is very, very worrisome.
One thing I'm hoping is that the addition of Fournier can maybe spell his minutes a little bit because right now they don't really have a backup wing like Nesmith and Pritchard and Grant Williams and Ojale were like their only backup players in general. And Fournier coming in, playing Jaylen Brown's position and being able to play small forward as well might help maintain upper 20s minutes for Brown if he can't go all the way. Obviously, he'll be in a closing lineup, and he's going to have games where he plays mid upper 30s minutes if it's an intense game. But when we're playing maybe weaker opponents, having Fournier might be able to spell his minutes a little bit.
Yeah, they really need to get Jason Tatum there was playing like league high of like 38 minutes a game after he just came back from COVID-19 in the middle of the season. I'm like, man, he came out and said it doesn't feel like he has the same stamina, and we're over here running him 38 minutes into the ground. But it wasn't like we had any choice. You know, the bench has been so horrendous this season that they're forced to play these guys like 38 minutes to have a chance, and we're still losing more games than winning at this point. So Evan Fournier is definitely going to really open that up, I think, a lot. And it'll be interesting to see what the Celtics decide to do in this buyout market as far as like who they're going to be able to get, if anybody. I'm not a big fan on Drummond, but we'll see what happens in that. What's been going on over at the HoopBall Nets?
So whenever we record, we like to mix it up and add a different question or segment that people don't normally cover. In the last episode, we were talking about who the most valuable player on the Nets is. Like, who's the one player that they can't do without and make a huge playoff run. And interestingly enough, I'm not the biggest Harden fan overall, but I do see that Harden is their most valuable player. Now, that doesn't mean he's their best player. KD is easily their best player. But Harden came in, allowed Kyrie to play off the ball, changed the whole dynamic of their team, and is running a league best offense at a very high performance. And even when they're not playing, he's having games like he had yesterday where they beat the Pistons. Yeah, the Pistons by 2, but he played 42 minutes and had 44, 14, and 8 assists. He's creating shots for other people like Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, and making them look great. And he really brings the best out in everyone on the court. And when all of them are playing together, Harden's going to have the ball in his hands the most. And I think he'll wind up having the least shot attempts of the three while having the ball the most. So having him there, and I also think it's going to fix his playoff turnovers because there's less pressure on him to do it all and score the ball. I think he'll be able to give the ball up to Kyrie, let him make his own shot. Same with KD. When he was in Houston, he had that huge 13 turnover game back in the day in the playoffs against Steph and Clay. But I don't think that's even possible for him anymore because he is the point guard who will have Kyrie and KD next to him and have Joe Harris there to hit threes and Blake Griffin and Claxton there for lobs. I think Harden's in the perfect situation as a point guard right now. And taking him out of that mix brings them right back to, are the Nets really the best team in the East? Because they had a rough start to the season without him. And I think Harden has proven, and he might actually wind up winning MVP if they continue at this rate, that he is the most valuable piece to the Nets. I don't know which of the three you think is the most valuable. I'd love to hear that, but we were talking, and my co-host actually agreed with me for once, and he thought.
I'm 100% on the Harden. Playmaking for me is harder to replace than scoring. You can always find a bucket getter. It's the NBA. You got a lot of those. I mean, Isaiah Thomas is a big example of like you can pretty much, run somebody, put somebody in there, and they can get 20 points a night for you. I just think playmaking and basketball IQ is something that should be looked at as some. That's why I think I view Marcus Smart the way I do, is I think his playmaking and his IQ. If I were to say who the Celtics MVP was, I definitely would probably say it's definitely Marcus Smart because I feel like he's the glue that sticks to everything. He makes everything work. He makes the offense run better. So I just think it's the same with James Harden where it's like his playmaking really opens up everything else for everyone else as well. But as far as everything else that goes, I know you got to get out of here shortly in like 2 minutes. So we'll wrap things up. If you got anything for the people out there, tell me your Twitter handle again, tell them where they can.
You can find me at Hunter_JKR on Twitter and Instagram. You can find our podcast, the HoopBall Nets podcast, on Apple, everything. We post that podcast everywhere. And me and him have some consistency issues, but every time we record, we bring the high energy. I was really happy to talk about the Celtics today, something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm really excited to see how the second half of the season goes. Hopefully I can come on soon again, and we'll be talking about the hot streak they're on.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have to link up and do this again, and even maybe when the Celtics and Nets play each other, we can maybe get all three of us into a podcast and see if we can really go into depth on some really cool stuff. But yeah, Hunter, I appreciate you coming on today, man. It was great talking with you. As well as if you guys want to follow us on HoopBall Celtics, you can find us on Twitter. We are posting shows and updates daily. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ballin Opinions. That's BALLINOPINOINS. All right, man. Well, it was great talking with you, Hunter. Hopefully, get back on this again, and hopefully, you like this whole locker room app, man.